Adobe is one of the most evil company in the world. This company is currently getting sued by the US government, is under scrutiny for potential use of user data, and even tells the user they can get sued for using older versions of their products that they bought. But this was a company that Steve Jobs himself wanted to buy. This company had revolutionized in the field of design, photography, video, and even documentation. So, how does a company once loved by everyone in the creative field become a nightmare for everyone that uses it? Hi, I've been editing videos for a decade now, but I've always steered clear of Adobe products as I found them somewhat laggy. However, when I collaborated with people who rely on Adobe, the older issues still persisted.
I cannot be the only one who is so tired of Premiere crashing at the worst possible.
After Effects needs to be rewritten from the ground up, or I'm not using this fucking program anymore.
Straight up, Premiere Pro is the reason I lost my spark and excitement in video editing.
And as this curiosity got into me, I delved deeper into the ecosystem that Adobe had created. And what I discovered was not just some criticism from their customers, but how a company sold its soul to become a cash cow machine. From selling you expensive subscriptions to bad customer service to outdated software to data privacy issues, we will be peeling back the curtain and looking at how Adobe is ripping off their customers. Like many other Silicon Valley startups, Adobe started in a garage in 1982 in Los Altos, California. Back in 1982, when personal computers were just starting to make waves, Jack Warnock and Charles Gaske, working at Xerox, developed a programming language for laser printers called the PostScript. This technology was a big change from old blocky style printing, but Xerox management decided to pass on this new technology and focus on the old block style printing. After the rejection, the duo left the company and released the Adobe PostScript. This allowed printers to print detailed images with a smoother typography instead of a pixelated blocky design. This gave a stark competition to Xerox, which once had snubbed this technology, and eventually making Adobe PostScript a standard for laser printers. Steve Jobs, who saw the potential in this company early on, tried to buy the company in 1982, but settled for 19% of the company's share at a valuation 5 times higher, making Adobe Silicon Valley's garage success story of the year. Jumping onto NASDAQ in 1986 and hitting the consumer scene with Adobe Illustrator in 1987, this company grew faster than a 90s boy band. By the mid-90s, Adobe was on fire, acquiring Photoshop from Knoll Brothers for $34.5 million, eventually making Photoshop a household verb.
A picture may no longer be worth 1,000 words. These days, the picture that the camera takes may well not be the picture that we end up seeing in newspapers and magazines.
Adobe made image editing way cheaper and accessible to the mass market. And after Pixels, Adobe dove into the video and motion with Premiere in 1991 and also purchased After Effects in 1994. Today, these tools are used in billion-dollar blockbusters like Avatar and Deadpool. Adobe broke the market yet again in 1993 with the introduction of portable document format, better known as PDF, with Adobe Acrobat. This allowed users to have quality consistency of layout, fonts, and graphics throughout the viewing, sending, printing of a file, and included features like digital signatures. With multiple acquisitions of many other independent softwares in 2000s, Adobe expanded their product lineup, becoming a monopoly and dominating the market with their Creative Suite. Adobe was once celebrated for its one-time purchase software packages, but in 2011 launched the Creative Cloud subscription-based software to appeal to a larger consumer pool for a lower price. This decision turned into a jackpot as Adobe market value went from $29 billion in 2013 to a whopping $298 billion in 2024. Though this decision boosted Adobe's market value, it would eventually turn out to be a bad deal for their customers. After being in the digital creative market for a long time, it was expected that Adobe would deliver top-tier softwares and exceptional service. Users complained of frequent experiencing crashes and sluggish performance across all Adobe suites of programs despite customers shelling out thousands of dollars. With incredibly buggy products such as Adobe Premiere refusing to load several MP3 files and Lightroom frequently freezing and crashing, it's clear that Adobe has given up after becoming popular, leaving its loyal customers quite bitter. Imagine you have a really old pair of shoes. Instead of buying a new pair, you keep on adding patches to the old ones to make them last longer. But no matter how many patches you add, they never feel as good as a new shoe. This is what Adobe is doing with its software by piling content on top of old code foundations. Instead of rewriting old software to make it work better with new computers, Adobe just adds new features on top of old code. This poor code optimization makes the software slow and full of bugs. On the flip side, newer competitors like Final Cut Pro X and likewise DaVinci Resolve 2 underwent a complete rewrite entirely from the scratch to boost playback, rendering, and transcoding. Adobe's approach of legacy code makes the software bloated and prone to problems. When new version comes out, it often breaks things instead of improving them. With its overwritten application codes, Adobe subscribers end up feeling like beta tester testing the software instead of valued customers getting a finished product. Adobe defends its poor performance, blaming the hardware not being powerful enough for complex workflow of its applications, but the performance is still laggy and compromised despite being run on fast, high-end computers. It is clear that their code management practices contribute heavily to these issues. Despite these issues, Adobe still remains popular because it has become the industry standards, and there aren't many competitors offering the same breadth or depth of services. This means Adobe doesn't feel the pressure to improve its software. Adobe has been focusing more on adding flashy new AI tools like content-aware fill rather than fixing the existing problems. This has frustrated many users who want to have better performance and a fewer bugs. Customers have a long list of criticism for the company regarding its lack of improvements and bug fixes in the recent years. This has been going on for as far as 2012, when 2 Adobe products were listed among the top most hated programs of all time. But with the recent terms and policy, it just seems like Adobe has taken their customers for granted to a whole another level. Not only with bugs now, with the recent policy and sudden tweak in its terms and conditions, Adobe has shattered the trust of millions of its users. After spending a lot of time creating your work, you might wake up one day to find that someone else now has access to it. This has shocked many artists and creative professionals who use Adobe products. When you spend a lot of money on an app, you expect to have full control and privacy over your creations. But Adobe's new rule allows them to reproduce and even create new work from what you make, which feels like a major betrayal. It's true that social media like Instagram and Facebook has similar policies, but posting on your personal account isn't the same as handling professional works that could contain confidential information worth millions. Some big companies like Spotify, Squarespace, and Wix also snoop on customers' data, but Adobe's excuse for doing this made people even angrier. Adobe stated that they would scan limited content without defining what limited means. They vaguely suggested that they might look for fraud and security or technical issues, but left it open-ended without committing to any specifics. Adobe also said that they might look at your work to check for problems that are like fraud or bad behavior, but they didn't clearly explain what that means. They also said that they needed data to train AI, which felt like a sneaky excuse of using paying customers to build their own database to sell it to the same users over again. People are upset because they have no choice but to rent Adobe software and now have to worry about their privacy and ownership being violated. Adobe has no good reasons to look at users' photos or unfinished work, and the idea that someone might manually review their content makes it even scarier. But despite all of their issues, what makes Adobe still thrive as a business, and why does it have such a grasp in the creative market? Adobe isn't just a company that sells design tools anymore. So over the last few years, Adobe have grown from a company with a few visual design applications to a huge diverse enterprise. The reason they maintain their dominance over the creative software market is because of the range of products that they offer. Even an amateur would find something for themselves. Whether you are into creating visual effects with After Effects, or sharing creative work on Adobe Behance, or publishing ebooks via Adobe Content Server, Adobe caters to everyone from students to professionals to creators to users. Adobe not only matches but often surpasses any new software innovations in the market through superior features in its own products, like the launch of InDesign in response to pressure from competing company Quark's page layout app called Quark Express. As all of Adobe products become more mainstream, consumers even started pirating the software. Though this didn't raise Adobe revenue, it familiarized people with Adobe's products, broadening Adobe's market drastically. This gave them the leeway to experiment with their business model and continually add more to their, and leaving no room for competitors. Adobe was sued by the US government on charges of hiding information and intentionally misleading its customers. According to the Restore Online Shoppers Confidential Act, a 2010 federal law that prohibits services from imposing charges including automatic subscription renewals without clearly disclosing material terms and obtaining informed consent from the customers. But when trying to cancel Adobe subscriptions, users have reported getting stuck in an endless loop of frustration. With the creative community trending against Adobe, many software programs providing a certain part or even entire service equivalent to Adobe software have surfaced the market. These are either free and open or charge only a fraction of what Adobe does, with comparable performance. Inkscape for Illustrator, Darktable for Lightroom, Blender for After Effects, and so much more are available for almost all the other software that Adobe offers. In this Adobe's race, the software that is almost about to catch up is DaVinci Resolve and Affinity. The Affinity suite, which is Affinity Design competing with Adobe Illustrator and Affinity Photo competing against Adobe Photoshop, has been talked about with creative community. Without a doubt, a lot of users are switching to these programs and the primary reason is the price. Affinity provides its service through one-time purchase system instead of a subscription. This means the user owns the software and are not just renting like Adobe makes it user do. Amidst the backlash that Adobe is getting regarding the bugs, data privacy concerns, and the price, Affinity has sliced its price by 50% across all its services, with free updates guaranteed until the next version 3. It already had more than 3 million users in the last year, and it's top-tier creative software without sky-high subscription fees. And another competitor is DaVinci Resolve. On the same line, offers professional video editing tools as both free software and a paid version with additional features. The paid version is one-time purchase at $295. It is competing with Adobe Premiere Pro, and editors have time and time again said that it's significantly faster and performs better with a smoother interface that feels less buggy. It also provides a live save feature where even the slightest little change is instantly saved compared to Premiere Pro, which features a 20-minute default save. Since the company that developed Resolve started out as a color grading tool, it excels in the color grading capabilities, far surpassing those of Adobe. Moreover, Resolve integrates to advanced graphics and audio editing functionalities on a single cohesive package, similar to combining Adobe Premiere Pro, After Effects, and Audition, makes it the best editing software to use. And with a lot of alternatives to Adobe coming up, it looks like the future for creators and creative people look good without Adobe.